Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Patrik. I used to work here at 1337 before. Now I'm a build engineer at Tobii Technology, and we create eye trackers. Have anyone of you used an eye tracker?
Yeah, I think we have one. Yeah.
You have one? Huh?
No.
Otherwise I should get you a...
We have one in the sales room.
Oh, cool. Otherwise I should get you one with a...
No, we don't
SDK.
Have one. We don't have one. We lost one. You should get it.
Okay, I will. Okay, where was I? Okay, yeah. Does anyone here use some kind of build automation today? Like, I'm not talking about like TeamCity or Jenkins, but like a tool for orchestrating builds. I know, like Fake, Rake, MS Build, something that. No?
You know I am.
Yeah, you are. Was it PSake? Or, no?
Well, no, usually Rake and Fake nowadays.
Yeah, Fake is very nice, I think. So this presentation is about cake. And that took like 95% of the time to make this presentation, so the nice animation. Really proud of that. So the agenda today is what is cake, the philosophy behind cake. I'm going to talk a little bit about dependency-based programming. We're going to go through a basic cake script syntax. I'm going to do a demo, which I haven't prepared very much, so it's going to be interesting. And then if you have any questions, we can take them. I mean, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to just ask. Okay, let's start. So, what is Cake? It's a build orchestration and automation tool that uses C# DSL, like supports the most common tools for a .NET developer, that is, out of the box. So, stuff like MS Build, Xbuild, NuGet, like for packing, pushing, installing, restoring, updating, Chocolatey, XUnit, testing frameworks like XUnit, NUnit, MSTest, and Fixie, Vix and NSys if you want to write installers, Octopus Deploy. It has support for build systems like TeamCity and AppWeaver, and a lot more. And it's cross-platform, so it works on Windows, OS X, and Linux at the moment. It's open source, and it's available on GitHub. It's kind of small, but it's slowly growing. Got like 300 pull requests and 30 contributors, where about 15 of them are actively involved in the project. We got about 15 third-party add-ins. That is actually more now, but when I wrote this slide it was 15, now it's like 25, I think, something like that. To add functionality to Cake, like to launch PowerShell scripts or managing IAS or talking with Azure or AVS, and a lot of different tools that it wraps. So the philosophy behind Cake, like why Cake? Actually, I should. The reason for that Cake exists is that I was using something called Fake. You used it. It's a
Yes.
build automation tool that uses F#, and I really liked it. But my colleagues didn't like it because no one wanted to like touch F# because no one knew it. I mean, I don't know it either that well, but it can be kind of complicated. It's nice for your personal projects, but if you don't know the language, it becomes, how can I say it? Yeah, when you're under a deadline or something and you need to do something, it's nice to know the language that you write your build scripts in. So I started Cake, and yeah, that's the reason why Cake exists. So this is the philosophy behind Cake. It's convention based. So for example, how we resolve tools, like the tools I told you about before, like it supports NuGet and MSBuild and XBuild and stuff like that. How Cake find those tools are convention based. So if you want to add your own tools, there is rules to follow, and to make sure that Cakes find them. And it should just work. Like, do you have NuGet in your source code repository? You shouldn't, but if you have, it will find it. Do you have it on your pod? It will find it. So it should just work the first time you try it. But sometimes you want to configure stuff as well, like maybe you made Windows 10 SDK portable and you want to make sure that MSBuild can find it here or there, or you can tell Cake. You can provide your own configurations, and you can also implement your own tools if there's some functionality that is missing. There's a add-in model in Cake, and you can replace parts that you don't like. Hopefully you don't replace stuff. It's non-intrusive, so it doesn't affect the way your team works. So you can sneak it in without anyone noticing until it's too late. So that means that if you already have a build automation tool of some kind, you can use this side by side. It won't affect anything. And no tools in repository. So it's by default, the conventions are that you bootstrap it via NuGet source or Chocolatey, or it should behave the same way regardless of the operating system you use or the environment. Like if you're running a build in TeamCity or Jenkins or TFS or Appware or whatever, you should not get like unexpected errors just because you run it in a new environment. That said, there might be bugs, you never know, so of course can't guarantee anything. So next thing I want to talk about is dependency-based programming. This is the way that you normally define your build scripts. So I thought it would be nice to talk a little bit about it, so make sure everyone is on the same page. Okay, so dependency-based programming. When you write a build script normally, regardless if you use MSBuild or Enant or Rake or Fake or anything, you define your work as fine-grained tasks. So you have these little units that do something, only one thing, and it does it really well. It might be like clean up stuff or run unit test or style cop or package stuff or static analysis, publish files to NuGet or some kind of build repository, and of course build your software. The order of execution between those small fine-grained tasks is defined as dependencies. So style cop requires that you cleaned up the artifact directory, for example, and the build task requires that you run style cop first because you don't want to build something that has some kind of error if you want to do it like that. You also want to make sure that everything is cleaned up before you build. And the same goes for static analysis. You can't run static analysis before you build your source code. I mean, like if you run, some tools can do that, but in this case, fxcop needs your code to be compiled, exactly. So, and you can't run unit tests before your project is built as well. You don't want to package stuff before you run the unit test, and you absolutely don't want to publish anything before you package it. So we define these dependencies between these tasks, how they run together, how they, sorry, my English is, I never talked about this in English before, how they relate to each other. You can also add conditions for a task. For example, maybe you don't want to run style cop for some reason during certain builds, or you only want to perform a publish if you're on a CI server, or if you're on a specific branch or something like that. So you can add conditions to these tasks, if they should be skipped or not. And by executing a target, we then determine what tasks should be executed in what order by following the dependencies. So in this case, I created two targets. One is the default target, and one is a target for app failure, which is a continuous integration service. Have anyone of you used app failure before? You have? So you'll find that the default target runs the package task, and when you run it on app failure, you want it to run the publish task, for example. So what it does is that it starts on the target, and then it creates this directed acyclic graph, and then it does a topological sort of this graph. So it will start at the app failure, and it will walk back to the graph. So all the tasks will be executed in the order that we expect them to. Is this any questions about this? I think this probably rings a bell for most of you. So what does a cake script look like? Remember these tasks? We can define one by using the task keyword and assign it a name and tell it what it does. So you just provide a lambda, and you provide, in this case we call the msbuild tool alias that takes the project solution and just build it. So if we go back, you saw that build was dependent on clean. So we say that this task is dependent on clean, on the clean task. If you want to do something after the task is finished, you can use the finally method that you just chain to the on the task method. And if you want to catch an error, you can do like this. In this case, we just echo the error to the output and rethrow it. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to keep the stack trace, the original stack trace, and if you like, you can use report error. That will just let you handle the error, or anything that goes wrong there will not propagate to the resulting stack trace when you see the error. And if you like Visual Basic, you can always use the continue on error.
It should be.
Yeah, what?
As it should be.
As it should be, exactly. And the criteria I was talking about before to task, you can also add criteria to a task. And I don't know if you can see, but in this case, there is no parameter to the lambda, but you can also get a context where you can get stuff like environment information and stuff like that. So you can also, we can write a criteria that says that if you run this locally, then skip it. Or if I'm on a feature branch, don't do this. Yeah, a small demo. Is there any questions so far?
Yeah, this code is C# code, right?
Yeah, it's C#. It's a. Shall I repeat it? Okay. So you asked if this is C# code. Yes, it is C# code. Maybe I should have told that before, but Cake is built upon Roslyn on Windows and the Mono compiler on Linux and OS X. And we have some script processing to make sure that because the Mono compiler and the Roslyn is not, their script environment doesn't work exactly the same, so we use some massaging of the scripts, but they should behave the same way. Any more questions?
How does Cake get a hold of the source code?
Of the source code? No, it doesn't. It does what you tell it. Cake is just a tool like anyone else, like an executable that executes script, and you have to tell you have to do the stuff that you want to do in your scripts. So you have to point out if you want to build something with MS Build, you have to tell the MS Build tool alias where your solution or project file is, or yeah. So this is standalone. You can use it for if you just want to run a script that has nothing to do with building source code. You can do that without problem. Okay, so can switch to okay.
But basically, even if the cake itself are written in C#, you can basically compile whatever you would like in it. So,
Oh yeah,
I guess compiling JavaScripts or compressing CSS files or something like that would be.
Yeah, absolutely. I should, as you notice, I'm not that I'm not that good presenter, so I obviously miss a lot of important stuff. But Cake is an orchestration tool. So at work, I use it. I don't use NuGet at work, for example. We use AirSync to synchronize tools, for example, on a build agent. And we use a lot of stuff like CMake and NMake and MS Build. And I mean, we use yeah. So regardless of what you're building, this is just a way of orchestrate and automate your builds. So you can build, I don't know, brainfuck or COBOL applications if you want to write your build scripts in C#. Yeah.
Useful.
I should add a mental note about actually saying that.
Yeah.
Yes, you should implement a brain for Cake.
Oh yeah, write your scripts in brainfuck. Yeah, yeah, I see it. Potential. Yeah, so demo time. I created a little application for FizzBuzz. It's just a class that spits out 10 first sequences of FizzBuzz and then some tests. And I'm gonna add some automation to this from scratch. So we will, yeah. So the first thing we do is we go to the Cake website, go to documentation, and setting up a new project. And we're running this on OS X, so we steal this line here. Will just curl, this will download a bootstrapper, and a bootstrapper is responsible of setting up the, download Cake for us, and it will restore tools if we have any, and it will execute Cake afterwards. So we just add this like that. We need to give it some execution rights. Now we can execute the bootstrapper and see what happens. So it will download the empty packages config. It will download NuGet, the NuGet executable, and it will install Cake, the latest version of Cake. And we don't have a build script yet, so that's why it's saying that could not find script build.cake. And that's a convention that if you don't provide a script name, it will automatically look for a build.cake file. So we can create a file. Okay, like that. And now we want to build our project, and we want to run the unit test, and I don't know, maybe compress it as well. I haven't actually prepared this part as much, so yeah. So we can start by getting the provided target. There's an argument called that. There's a method called argument that will let you get arguments passed to the script itself. So let's say that the default target is default. And we will define our target. We'll tell it that it should run the expected target. So if we run the script now, it will look like this. Okay, it ran the target default, but it didn't do that much. So we can define the.
Can you read the text?
You can see. I can. Like that. So we want a clean task to clean up our build artifact directory, and we want to build the source code. We can move this. And we tell Cake that build is dependent on clean, and by default you should run. Actually, we can just set the default target to build like that. And we can, there's a dry run capabilities if you just want to see what will happen if I run this script. So in this case, target is default. Oh yeah, sorry. We cannot do it like that. I have to, oh yeah, we can do it like that. Since we use the bootstrapper script, which is not required, it will automatically set the default target to default if we don't provide one. So we could we can actually change that to say that it should run something else if we want to, but that's at the run it again. Let's say it runs clean build default, so everything is good. Okay, so now we actually want to do something. So imagine we want to build our application and we want to copy the relevant artifacts to a directory in the root called artifacts. So each build we want to create and clean that directory, make sure it's there for us. So we will clean directory artifacts. And we want to build our projects as well. We use xbuild for this. What's it called? Yep, of course. Okay, so we're using NuGet packages in our build. So if they're not already installed, we want to install them as well as part of the build process. So we can actually do that. We can add restore NuGet packages. No, it's not called like that. It's called NuGet restore. And we provide our solution that has this packages config dependency. We'll run it again.
Shouldn't build be dependent on the NuGet?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we'll run it again, and it should restore the NuGet packages, and it builds our project. So now we have a very basic script that does a lot of basic stuff, but we could easily run this on TeamCity and get a consequent, what's the word? Consistent result. I don't know if I should show some more about scripting, or if you...
The main benefit here is that you can take this to your non-polyglot team members and have them be able to grok this.
Yeah, if your team members know C#, then you can do that. Yeah, and it's also really easy to, like, if there's no build automation today, it's not intrusive in any way. You can add this little script file and this little bootstrapper, and yeah, so.
I have a question. How do you run this script?
How you run
Do
it?
you compile it in runtime with the cake, or do you analyze it?
Yeah.
Build the tree and stuff like that?
Good question. What the bootstrapper did, because there's a lot of magic involved. Not magic, but when I present it, it might look like that. But if we look at the bootstrapper script, the bootstrapper script is only to make it easier for us to perform a build. But what it does is that it simply downloads cake from NuGet, and cake is an executable that relies on Roslyn, or the monocompiler in this way. So what it will do, it will take your script and compile it with Roslyn and then execute it. And it will provide, on the script host itself, it will provide the functionality that cake needs to run. So more or less it's a, in the core it's really, really simple, but it's mostly about the functionality around it, like the tools and the ways of working with files and directories and yeah, stuff like that.
What about these task and clean directory functions? So it executes the script in some environment where this accessible, right?
Yeah.
These functions.
Yeah. So when you write task and provide it a name, it will internally in Cake. I mean, on the script host, you have the task graph and everything. So that would just add this task and this if you provide a action for what it does and stuff like that, it just add it to the task and add it to the graph. And when you run the script, it will execute this graph using the target. So
How did that X build appear there? How was it recognized comment?
Xbuild?
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's
Totally, your cake doesn't care about it, right?
No.
Something that is an add-on.
yeah, exactly. So we have this concept of tool add-ins in Cake that is called script aliases, which are more or less, let's see if I can. So every method that you saw is a script alias in Cake. It's a static method that with an attribute that is an extension method for the IK context. And it looks something like this. So here we have a method called getMagicNumber and the answer to life. And we will create dynamic methods on the script host when we compile the script, so you can access them in your scripts. So you will simply use them as getMagicNumber false. So it will look like a method on the script host itself. So Cake doesn't do much, but the engine that you call into, that does the work. So you can host this. There's someone who created a standalone if you wanted to write your Cake scripts in a console application because he wanted IntelliSense. So it's not connected to the hosting environment for Cake is disconnected from the execution engine. So there's also a script pack if you prefer script CS, if you want to run it on that. But yeah, the reason for not using script CS as by default is that they don't have good. You need to actually install it via Chocolatey on a computer, so there's no transient way of installing script CS, or at least it wasn't when this began. So yeah. So we got on the web page there's a list of all the add-ins that we support. So like Xbuild that we saw there, we used this one here. But you can also provide like settings for it as well, like the normal stuff you expect when invoking Xbuild, like targets or verbosity or properties and stuff like that. So all the tools that's supported by Cake can be found on the web page. And we also have documentation for add-ins as well. So like the Xamarin tools, for example. Yeah. So if you create an add-in and want it listed as part of the reference documentation, you can just send a pull request to the website and it will be added.
When you install Cake, it downloads all the extensions with it?
No, actually not. It what it does is you have to reference the extension. So you can either do it by a specific preprocessor directive, the tool directive, where you can just, that's coupled to NuGet actually. So in this case, it will download XUnit runner console and install it under the tools folder for you.
Why the tools folder?
That's just a convention. Like
where is this convention from?
Fake.
Okay.
A lot of the things in Cake is inspired by Fake. So
Yeah, I wondered about fake as well. I got
Yeah,
the tools for.
yeah. I mean, it's not required in any way. I mean, this is just a, if you want to use the built-in conventions, you can download it like this. But if you would
So if I would like to put a new extension, what would I have to do?
new extension,
Yes.
create a C# project.
Or an existing one. I want to use an existing one that somebody built,
Oh yeah, yeah. So
but it's not there in the tools folder.
okay, you can either, in this case, you can see if I can. Since we use the bootstrapper, there's a normal packages config, so you can add it here and it will be installed in the tools folder, or we can simply use the preprocessor directive. But if you want to use an add-in that adds functionality to Cake, you normally write add-in and then like that. And that will also like include namespaces and stuff. But these are just like nice to haves. Like if you want to do like this, nothing stops you from referencing an assembly directly and using the reference, the normal reference directive that you maybe know from script CS, for example. You can also use the load directive to load script files if you want to. So let's say I have we have an assembly in our root that's called Bernardo. We can reference it as like we normally do, and we can add the correct namespace and use our assembly. So this is just a convenient way to the add-in directive is just a convenient way of like downloading a plugin from NuGet, add the namespaces, reference the assembly.
Now imagine that I have an add-in that I'm developing for my project.
Yeah.
And I only have it in code and I want Cake to build it and use it immediately. Can I do it?
You want to build the add-in and then you want Cake to use it? No, because I mean, yeah, you can, of course, everything is possible. You can run two passes of the build. You can build your tool first and then use it from the second build script. But
so it doesn't cache all the add-ins, so it will always.
What? Maybe I don't understand.
I have one task that is build the add-in that I want to use in the same Cake script.
Yeah, I mean, you can always like do a assembly load from and load assembly and.
It just works.
Yeah, that should work. I mean, it's C# code more or less, so it's.
It's just challenging.
Yeah. Any questions?
Opinion?
Nothing? Everything is crystal clear?
Automate this, run this schedule.
On a
Schedule.
yeah.
I could just use schedule task and call the script. I need some special magic.
Yeah, you could do that, but I mean,
Why?
why? Like if you want to automate something else, or
And I want to do some integration tests every night.
yeah, but then you should call it from your CS server instead. Like what do you use? You use TFS, TFS build that lands at your. Yeah, so you would just add an activity that calls the bootstrapper and start a build, and then yeah. So there's nothing magic. It's just an executable like everyone else that runs scripts. Yeah.
what difference between all these automation systems and Johan?
Between this and other,
Yes.
yeah, it's the DSL more or less. It's
Okay.
so if you, I mean, I think as long as you use one system, I think it's good. Like then if you use like Rake, that is Ruby, that is a build automation tool with a Ruby DSL, or Fake, that is a F# DSL, or it doesn't, yeah. So if you like F#, use Fake. If you like C#, use Cake, more like that. Yeah, so that was everything I had to say. So, yeah, sorry. So, thank you.